I always knew my mom, Jenna, 49, female, had a habit of putting other people before me, but this time it felt different. It felt like she did not just overlook me, she actively chose to make my life harder. I'm 18, female, and I just graduated high school. College was the plan from the start, and my dad, Travis, 52, male, made sure I had a college fund set up for it. The problem? My mom somehow had control over it, and now she was using it against me. My parents split up years ago because my mom cheated on my dad with her now husband, William, 59, male. That was bad enough, but things only got worse when she married him. William had a son, Charles, 26, male, from a previous relationship. Charles was much older than me, and by the time I was starting middle school, he had already dropped out of high school. He was never interested in studying, working, or doing anything productive. He lived at home, played video games, and went out with his friends. That was his routine for years. Meanwhile, I worked hard in school. I was not a genius or anything, but I did well. I had dreams of going to college, studying what I loved, and building a future for myself. My dad always encouraged me. He was the one who made sure a college fund was set aside just for me. He wanted me to have options, to be able to go to the best school I could. But for some reason, my mom had legal control over it. I never really questioned how she got that control. I trusted that she would not interfere with it. I should have known better. When I was little, my mom never really paid attention to me. She took care of me, but she did not seem interested in my life. She did not ask about my day or care about what made me happy. When I was 8, she married William, and everything became about Charles. My mom had always wanted a son, and now that she had one, it was like I didn't exist. She spoiled him, praised him for every little thing, and ignored anything bad he did. No matter what, she was always on his side. I stopped trying to get her attention because I knew it wouldn't matter. She had already picked Charles as her favorite, and nothing I did would change that. Charles knew he could do whatever he wanted because my mom would always defend him. He did not really care about her, but he used her to get what he wanted. If he needed money, she gave it to him. If he got in trouble, she made excuses for him. But once he got what he needed, he ignored her until the next time. My mom never saw it. She was too busy acting like he was perfect to notice he didn't actually care about her. A few days ago, Charles suddenly decided he wanted to go back to school and get his high school diploma. That was great for him, honestly. It was a good decision. The issue? My mom thought it was my responsibility to make sure he succeeded. She told me I needed to help him study, guide him through his classes, and basically be his personal tutor. I said no. It was not my job to hold the hand of a 26-year-old man who had years to figure things out but never did. I had my own future to focus on. My college applications, my scholarships, my job. I had a lot on my plate. Helping Charles was not part of my plan. That's when my mom did something I never expected. She laughed right in my face, as if my refusal was some kind of joke to her. And then she told me she had already made up her mind. She was keeping my college fund on hold, and she wanted to see Charles catch up to me first. At first, I thought she was messing with me. Maybe trying to guilt trip me or something, but no. She was serious. She actually thought it was fair to delay my future just so her smart boy could finally do something with his life. She told me I needed to be more supportive, that family helps family, and that I should be proud to guide Charles through this new phase in his life. Proud of what? I had nothing against Charles, but he had spent most of his life doing nothing. And now I was supposed to put my life on hold just because he decided to change? I reminded her that the college fund was set up by my dad, that it was not hers to decide what to do with. But somehow she had gotten legal control over it and there was nothing I could do about it. She told me I was being selfish, that I was acting like I was better than Charles, that I should be grateful to have a stepbrother who was finally trying to improve himself. I was furious. I worked hard for years. I never asked for handouts. I never wasted time. I had a plan, a future I was working towards, and now all of that was being paused for someone who had every opportunity but just did not take it until now. How was that fair? Charles, of course, did not say much about it. He never really did. He just went along with whatever my mom said. He did not seem to care that I had to suffer for his choices. Maybe he thought I owed it to him. Maybe he just didn't care at all. I tried to talk to my dad about it. He was angry, but his hands were tied. My mom had some legal claim over the fund, and I still do not know how she managed to get that kind of power. He said he would try to fight it, but I could tell he was not sure if he could do anything about it. I could not stand it. I couldn't stand how easily she dismissed me, how she pretended my life did not matter as much as Charles's. It was like she wanted to make up for all the years he wasted by taking from me. She was giving him my time, my opportunities, my future. Like it was all just something she could pass around as she pleased. Then my dad did something. She did not expect the movers to show up the very next day and begin packing up all their things. She didn't expect a for sale sign to be put up outside the house the very next day. Now she wants to communicate. She thought she had control over everything. She thought she could make decisions for me, delay my future, expect me to just go along with it. But she forgot one thing. This was never her house. It was my dad's. And the moment he found out what she had done, he wasted no time making sure she felt the consequences of her actions. She had spent years acting like she could do whatever she wanted, like her choices had no consequences. But my dad was done playing nice. He had let her have control over too much for too long, and now she was getting everything taken away from her just as fast as she had taken my future from me. I was not even there when the movers came. My dad had already made arrangements before I even knew what was happening. By the time I got home, half the furniture was gone. Boxes were being loaded into trucks. It was happening fast. And my mom looked like she had just been hit by a truck. She kept pacing around, looking at everything being packed up, completely shocked. William was nowhere to be found. Maybe he was at work, maybe he just did not want to deal with it, maybe he thought she'd handle it like she always did, but this time there was no way out of it. I was not surprised when she suddenly wanted to talk, when she suddenly wanted to explain herself, to convince me that things weren't as bad as they seemed. Now that everything was falling apart around her, she wanted to negotiate. She wanted to communicate. She did not care when she was taking away my future. She did not care when she was making decisions about my life without even asking me. But now that it was her life being uprooted, now that it was her plans being destroyed, she suddenly realized how unfair it all was. It was almost funny. Almost. She wanted me to listen to her. She wanted me to give her a chance to explain, to defend herself. But where was this concern for fairness when I was the one being screwed over? Where was this willingness to communicate when she was making decisions that could ruin my future? She had plenty of chances to do the right thing. She had plenty of time to reconsider, but she never did. She was so convinced she could control everything that I would just accept it. that she could force me to sacrifice my future for Charles without any pushback. I watched as she tried to argue with the movers, she called my dad over and over again as she tried to find some way to stop what was happening. But there was nothing she could do. She had pushed too far, and now she was paying the price. Charles showed up at some point. He looked confused and then angry and then frustrated. Maybe he finally realized that my mom could not protect him from this. Maybe he finally understood that he was not going to get a free ride forever. I didn't stick around to hear whatever excuse she was coming up with. I had nothing to say to her. She had made her choices and now she had to live with them. She spent years prioritizing William and Charles over me. She had let them take, and when it came time for me to have something of my own, she did not even hesitate before deciding that Charles needed it more. I was supposed to give up my education, my future, just so she could keep pretending her new family was perfect. But she never once thought about what that meant for me. She never cared about how it would affect me. She assumed I would go along with it, that I would not have the power to stop her. She had no idea that my dad had been waiting for the right moment to step in. She had no idea that the house she had lived in for years was not really hers to control. Now she was watching as everything fell apart. The movers weren't just taking away furniture, they were taking away the security she had built on lies and manipulation. She had thought she had control over me, over my life, but she had forgotten that she was just living on borrowed time, and time was up. She tried calling me after that. She left messages, sent texts, tried to get me to meet her. She wanted to fix things, to explain, to make me see her side of it, but I did not need to hear her side. I already knew it. I had lived it. She had made her priorities clear a long time ago. She had chosen them over me again and again, and now she was facing the consequences. Charles, of course, acted like this was all unfair, like he was the real victim here. He had never had to work for anything in his life, and now he was realizing that he could not rely on my mom to clean up his messes anymore. He had wasted years doing nothing, and now he was scrambling to figure out what to do next. But that was not my problem. It never was. He had plenty of time to get his life together, and he chose not to. My mom had enabled him, protected him, shielded him from every consequence, but she could not do that anymore. The last time I saw her, she looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. She had aged overnight, and for the first time I saw her real fear in her eyes. Fear of what was coming next. Fear of losing the control she had held onto for so long. Fear of finally having to deal with the consequences of her actions. But it was not my job to comfort her. It was not my responsibility to make her feel better about what she had done. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. And now, after everything, she wants to communicate. Now that she's lost her home, and now that she's lost control, now that everything is slipping away from her, now she wants to talk. AITA for ignoring her? Update 1. 2 weeks later, things had finally started settling down, at least for me. My dad made sure I had everything I needed for college, and without my mom trying to interfere, I could actually focus on my future. It felt strange at first, having that weight lifted off my shoulders, but I was not about to complain. As for my mom, things went downhill fast. She and William had to move into a cramped rental apartment after the house was sold. Apparently, money was tighter than she had let on, and without the house, they were barely making ends meet. My dad had given her time to find a new place, but the moment the sale went through, she lost all access to anything that had been tied to him. That included the college fund she had been holding hostage. Reality hit her hard, and she spent years believing she was in control and that she could manipulate and twist things in her favor, but now, with nothing left to hold over my head, she was just another person struggling to get by. William, who had always relied on her for stability, was not handling the stress well either. Their relationship, built on convenience and shared entitlement, was starting to crack under pressure. Charles, unsurprisingly, completely fell apart. He had never been expected to be responsible for anything, and now that he actually had to figure things out for himself, he floundered. From what I heard, he dropped out of school again after realizing he would actually have to put in the work to graduate. He had no job, no direction, no real support now that my mom was not in a position to enable him anymore. His complaints flooded social media, long, self-pitying rants about how unfair life was, how he deserved better, and how nobody was giving him the help he needed. But there was no sympathy to be found. People who had once humored him had grown tired of his act. My mom still tried to contact me, and the messages were different now, less angry, more desperate. She wanted to meet, to talk, to make things right. But it was not about fixing our relationship. It was about her needing help. She wanted me to feel sorry for her, to believe that she had just made mistakes and deserved another chance. But I knew better. At one point, she even showed up outside my dorm, waiting by the entrance like some ghost from the past. I saw her before she saw me. She looked different, tired, older, weighed down by the consequences of her own choices. I turned and walked the other way, leaving her standing there, clutching her purse like it held the answers she was looking for. Then came the Facebook posts. At first, they were vague, cryptic messages about betrayal and ungrateful children. Then they became more targeted, painting herself as a victim of her selfish daughter who abandoned her family after everything she had done for me. Her friends and distant relatives chimed in, some offering support, others questioning what had really happened. I ignored it. The people who mattered knew the truth, and I was not about to start defending myself to strangers. William, on the other hand, was growing restless. Without the stability my mom had once provided, his temper flared more often. Neighbors reported loud arguments from their apartment. A few weeks later, rumors spread that he had left her, unable to deal with the stress of their new life. Whether it was true or not, I didn't care. She had chosen him over her own child, and now she was left with nothing. One night I received an email from an unknown address. It was long, rambling, filled with apologies and excuses. My mom was begging me to talk, to understand her side, to give her another chance. She was struggling, she said. She needed me, but nowhere in her words did she acknowledge the pain she had caused me, the betrayal, the years of manipulation. It was just another attempt to make me feel guilty. I did not respond. She had made her choice over and over again. Now she had to live with it. And I was finally free to live my life without her trying to control it. The weeks that followed only proved how much things had truly changed. Without my mother hovering over me, I finally had the chance to build a life on my own terms. College kept me busy, and I threw myself into my studies, determined to make the most of the opportunities my dad had ensured I had. I made new friends, joined clubs, and for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely happy. Meanwhile, my mother was still spiraling. I heard through distant family members that she had been evicted from the apartment after falling behind on rent. William had indeed left her, packing up in the middle of the night, disappearing without a trace. She had nowhere to go, and her last resort was reaching out to old friends and distant relatives for a place to stay. Most of them turned her down, knowing full well the kind of person she was. She had burned too many bridges, and now she was left to deal with the fallout on her own. Charles didn't fare any better. He'd always relied on my mom to shield him from the real world, and now that she could no longer do that, he was stuck. He bounced from couch to couch, unable to keep a job, unwilling to take responsibility for himself. Last I heard, he had gotten into trouble with some shady people. Owing money he could not pay back, he was still blaming everyone but himself. I knew my mother would never truly change. Even in her lowest moments, she would not take responsibility for what she had done. She would always see herself as the victim, always believe that the world had wronged her, and maybe in some twisted way, that gave her comfort. It allowed her to avoid facing the truth, that she had done this to herself. I thought about all the times I had felt powerless under her control, all the moments I had doubted myself because of her manipulation. Now I was free, and for the first time in my life I realized just how much better off I was without her holding me back. But a small part of me wondered, was I wrong for walking away, for refusing to give her another chance? Update 2. Things took a turn I never saw coming. My mom had already been struggling to keep things together. But this time it completely fell apart. Charles had always relied on her to clean up his messes, and this time was no different. He did something serious enough that people were whispering about it, but no one wanted to give me the full details. Whatever it was, it had consequences, and my mom went into full damage control mode, just like she always did. She made excuses, tried to downplay it, and acted like it was just another minor mistake. But it was clear this was not something she could just smooth over. People were fed up. She had burned too many bridges, and even the few who still tolerated her weren't willing to back her up this time. But the real shock came when Charles turned on her. She had spent years shielding him, treating him like he could do no wrong, convincing herself and everyone else that he was some misunderstood genius who just needed the right opportunity. And now, when she needed him to stand by her, he exploded. It happened in public in front of people who had once believed her stories. Charles lashed out, screaming at her, blaming her for everything that had gone wrong in his life. He did not just yell about the current situation. He went all the way back. He told her she had ruined him, that she had never been a real mother to him, that she had filled his head with lies about his own worth while making sure he never actually had to work for anything. He accused her of using him as an excuse to control everything and of setting him up to fail. My mom was humiliated. She had always been so sure of her control over him, so certain that he would always be on her side. But in that moment, it all crumbled. He did not see her as his protector. He saw her as the reason his life was a mess. And for the first time, he was not afraid to say it out loud. After that, everything unraveled fast. My mom stopped posting her usual pity party rants online. Charles disappeared from social media altogether. I heard through distant relatives that he had left, cutting ties with her completely. He did not have a plan, did not have anywhere stable to go, but he wanted nothing to do with her anymore. The one person she had prioritized over everything, over me, over her marriage, over her dignity, was gone, and she had nothing left. Then, just like before, she reached out to me, and this time her messages were different. There was no anger, no passive-aggressive guilt-tripping, just silence for a few days and then short, almost hesitant attempts at conversation. I didn't respond. I had nothing to say to her anymore. Days passed, and then I started hearing new rumors. My mom was struggling financially, emotionally, socially. Without Charles to take care of, and without her self-imposed mission to push him ahead of everyone else, she had nothing to focus on. People who used to entertain her drama weren't interested anymore. She was no longer the center of attention, no longer the victim she had carefully painted herself to be. I heard from an aunt that she was trying to get in touch with my dad again. After years of acting like he was the villain for leaving, she suddenly wanted to talk things out. Of course he had no interest in that. He had moved on long ago, and from what I knew, He had built a life that did not include her or her problems. Even William, the man she had thrown everything away for, seemed to be keeping his distance. Their relationship had already been shaky since everything started falling apart, but now it looked like he was realizing just how much of a mess he had gotten himself into. He was not stepping up to help her, was not fighting to keep things together. If anything, he seemed tired of it all. And as for Charles, he was nowhere to be found. Part of me wondered if he regretted what he had done, if he wished he could take it back and return to the life where my mom fixed everything for him. But at the same time, I knew he had burned that bridge completely. He had exposed everything in front of people who once believed in my mom. There was no way she would forgive him for that. I had spent so much of my life watching my mom control everything, always making sure things went her way. But now, for the first time, she was the one left behind. No one was fixing things for her. No one was coming to save her. And honestly, I did not feel bad for her. She had made her choices, and now she was living with them. Update 3. It has been a month since everything completely fell apart for my mom, and I have one final update. Charles did not just leave, he made sure to leave a mess behind. Turns out he had been using my mom's credit cards for months, racking up debt in her name. She only realized it when the collection agencies started calling, demanding payments she had no way of making. She tried to deny it at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. Charles had spent thousands on random things, electronics, gaming equipment, even renting out Airbnbs just to party with people who did not actually care about him. When my mom confronted him, he shrugged it off. He told her it was her fault for spoiling him, for making him believe she would always clean up his messes, and then just like that he disappeared, leaving her to deal with the consequences. Desperate. My mom tried to go to William for help, but William was already done with her. He had his own financial issues and was not about to take on hers. He left without warning, emptying out the joint account they shared. My mom was left with nothing but overdue bills and a house she could no longer afford. She tried to play the victim. She called relatives, sobbing about how Charles had betrayed her, how William had abandoned her, how she was on the verge of losing everything. But no one cared anymore. They had all watched her push away the people who truly mattered while bending over backward for Charles. Now that her world was crumbling, no one wanted to save her. I heard she moved into a tiny apartment across town, a far cry from the home she once had. The life she built around control and manipulation had fallen apart, and for the first time she had to live with the consequences of her own actions. She tried to reach out to me again, first with guilt, then with anger, then with fake kindness. But I ignored every message. I did not care what she had to say anymore. Charles got what he wanted for years, but in the end, he destroyed the only person who ever fought for him. My mom sacrificed everything for him, and in return, he left her with nothing. As for me, I moved on. I focused on myself, my future, and the opportunities I had fought to reclaim. College was finally happening, and I had never felt more in control of my life. I got a job, made new friends, built a life without the constant weight of my mom's manipulation and Charles's entitlement dragging me down. A few weeks after she moved, I got a message from an unknown number. It was my mom. She was not begging this time. She was not angry. She was not even pretending to be kind. She was bitter. She blamed me for not standing by her when she needed me. She accused me of abandoning her, of watching her fall and doing nothing to help. It was the most ironic thing I had ever read. She had spent years choosing Charles over me, and now that he was gone, she expected me to fill the void he left behind. I did not reply. I did not even think about it for more than a second. She had made her choices, and now she was finally realizing just how terrible they had been. Last I heard, she was struggling to keep up with rent and her financial situation was only getting worse. With her credit ruined, finding a way out would not be easy. As for Charles, no one knows where he went. Maybe he found someone else to leech off of. Maybe he burned through all his bridges. Either way, I knew one thing for sure. Neither of them were my problem anymore. For the first time in my life, I felt free. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.